Hey guys, welcome back to Tactical Pontoon. I know 2 videos in less than like 3 months. Go figure. Had a little extra time. I want to address something that I've had a lot of questions about on my Instagram, Facebook, and that would be the Strike Industries trigger shoe. And there's two really big reasons why uh, people are excited about it, or were initially. I think some of that's died down, and I can definitely understand why. And that is, it's a trigger shoe, it looks good, and the price. These things are priced relatively inexpensive. And I know initially when they were first just giving us teaser shots of it, I was excited about it and I looked forward to it coming out. But by the time they finally drug their feet and got their testing out of the way, if you will, and got this to the market, I was already working with the Long Ranger from Ranger Proof Swag. And I love that trigger shoe. It's a beautiful trigger shoe, and it does what I want for a very reasonable price. So this finally hit the market. I was not excited by that point, and I had not picked one up. This one was actually sent to me by Matt at Excel Weapon Works to look at, evaluate, and go over. So while I have it in the shop, I wanted to give my honest opinion on it. Number one, would I buy this? I like it. I like the way it looks. There are things that make me pretty much pass on it. Number one, and this is something that came out really, really quickly, and that was when the trigger bar is in the trigger shoe, it wobbles just quite a bit. There's just a lot of wobble in there. Now, while that is not a huge deal, and because once it's in the frame and the slide stop is in there and kind of wedged up in place, it doesn't wobble. The trigger bar is pretty much going to do its job, but there is the possibility, there is a little bit more movement than you're going to find with other trigger bars or other trigger shoes. This is a sloppy tolerance, and while not a deal breaker, it is definitely something that I'm not excited about. So that was the first thing. The next thing was I was seeing videos on YouTube, well, Facebook and Instagram of people actually having these triggers break before the safety tab hit the frame. And most of the videos I saw were on polymer 80s, and that has to do with the fact that the polymer 80 has a larger opening in this area than the factory Glock frame. And with the very, very large distance between the safety tab, this little safety tab that is supposed to contact the frame, you were looking at that being a possibility, especially with certain trigger setups. Some break quicker than others. The Ghost Evo and Edge series of connectors do have the possibility of breaking a little bit sooner. There are a few others, especially with the polymer 80 setup, that are going to break sooner and possibly before this safety ever hits the frame. So, not exactly the best of design for a retail trigger shoe. For something that is to be modified, it does leave a little bit more on the table, but just this amount of take up without the safety doing anything is not a good idea. Now, if they had done, at least in my opinion and the way I see it, if they had built this trigger shoe with most of the take up pre-travel already removed, say like an agency or even the Long Ranger, you would have something that is a bit safer because that safety tab would be closer to the frame, which during certain, mishandlings, if you will, if you drop the damn thing, inertia being what it is, you don't want this much travel between where your safety is going to actually activate versus being right then and there if you have a pre-travel reduced trigger where the trigger's only going to move just this little bit instead of this amount of movement. This is a lot of movement that could possibly cause an issue. For most people, for a basic $40 trigger shoe that anybody and everybody can buy, I just don't see that as being a safe option. And I know why they put that in there. I know why this is designed like this. This is actually designed for people to modify, put a set screw in, and have an adjustable take-up without having to do any sort of cutting or grinding on this little safety tab. Okay? I get that. I think that is a neat idea. I think if they wanted to really sell that idea, it should have already had a set screw to do an adjustment from the factory. But as it is, they really did leave themselves open to interpretation and possible failure, which is unfortunate because it is a relatively comfortable trigger shoe. The thing that I do not like about it is that safety. It goes all the way in, but at the same time, I find when I dry fire it, I still feel it quite a bit. And unlike the factory one, it's wider, so it is a bit more comfortable, but it is noticeable, at least to myself. That being said, do I recommend this trigger? I do not. And it's sad because I did wait for it, but I really don't recommend this trigger. That's really what I have to say. As for the safety concerns, I really do see that. I definitely don't recommend it for polymer 80s, especially with certain setups. And I definitely don't recommend it for setups with really light triggers that people are going to expect to carry every day. It's just not a good option for that. And then the other thing about it is that additional trigger bar flop, if you will, is not a good idea. Just any extra play in the system that is unnecessary is just a failure point eventually going to happen. At least that's the way I look at it. And it was really unfortunate. It's a neat looking trigger. It feels good, but in my world, I would have to pass on it. And that's really my thought. This one will be going back to Matt with some modification, and it will be a neat trigger. I don't see him carrying it. It's really probably going to be just a range toy, and that's really where I would put this trigger at. As a range toy trigger, I would not carry this trigger myself, and I really don't recommend it for polymer 80s. So, for the money, I would pass on that one. All right, that's been my take on the Strike Industries trigger shoe. I will catch you guys later, and if, for example, I don't make another video, you have a great Christmas. Follow me on Instagram. Give me your thoughts. Give me your opinion. And if you personally have used the Strike Industries trigger shoe, and I really do like Strike Industries, I think they make some really, really creative products. Some of them are hits. Some of them are misses. I think if they go back to the drawing board a little bit and change that safety and their tolerances in that slot where the trigger shoe fits in, I think they've got something excellent on their hands. But until then, I really don't recommend them. As it is, we'll catch you next time. I'm out of here.